Welcome into another Rauf report. It's been way too long on the channel. Very happy to be back and posting these videos. Given the break and given where we are in the season right now, this video is going to be dedicated to the National Player of the Year race, which is basically between Duke's Cooper Flagg and Auburn's Shania Broom. To me, it should be Cooper Flagg, and I'm going to try and explain why in this video. There's been a lot of conversation around the last couple of weeks because it is so clearly those two. And it has been the tightest and most entertaining and probably best National Player of the Year race that we've had in maybe 2 decades, right? The Adam Morrison, JJ Redick one from way back in 2006, I believe it was, comes to mind. Buddy Hill, Denzel Valentine comes to mind as well. But this one is the best we've had in some time. And I think you can make the argument that it is better than any of those that we have had, certainly in recent memory. That being said, to me, there's not much of a debate as to who the National Player of the Year should be this season. And it should be Cooper Flagg pretty easily. Janai Broom was a phenomenal player, should be a unanimous All American, should get a shot in the NBA because of how good of a player he is. This is simply a reflection of how good I think Cooper Flagg is. I did a Ralph report earlier this season after the Pitt game about how he was the best player that I've ever seen live. I have not seen everybody live, but I have been to several Final Fours. I've been covering this in person for a little bit over a decade now. Been going to games much longer than that. He is the best player that I have ever seen live. That is my personal opinion, but there are numbers to back it up as well. Obviously, Duke played last night, had the blowout win over Wake Forest. I don't think Wake Forest should be a tournament team. We're not going to crown somebody National Player of the Year because of what they do against Wake Forest. Cooper Flagg finished that game though with 28 points, 8 boards, 7 assists, 3 blocks, and 2 steals. He's the only player in the last 15 seasons of college basketball to record those stats against a high major opponent. The last one that did it in 2010 was Evan Turner, also won National Player of the Year. Flagg and Broom have been going back and forth, and Broom scored 3 points over the weekend, so there is some recency bias when you look at those recent things. But I'm more concerned about big picture as a whole because it's National Player of the Year, not Player of the Month or things like that. I do think though that Flagg has been much more consistent throughout the course of the year. The numbers show this out as well. On evanmedia.com, both Flagg and Broom rank in the top 3 in the country in offensive BPR, in terms of your overall player impact on the offensive end. Both top 3 in the country. Defensive end, Flagg's number 2. Broom is 34th, 35th. There's not much of a comparison there. The overall impact for Flagg is much better. The argument for Broom is often that he's the best player on the best team. And there are a lot of times that we see that earn somebody National Player of the Year, particularly when there is not a true overwhelming talent, right? This year there is an overwhelming talent in Cooper Flagg. And I'm also going to push back on the fact that maybe Auburn is not the best team. For number one, they lost to Duke. Number two, Duke has posted the second highest efficiency rating in KenPom history since KenPom has been tracking this. They're basically the second best team in the KenPom era, spanning all the way back to 1999. I think the 1999 Duke team was number one. So are we sure Auburn is the best team? Because if we're going best player on best team, it might be Cooper Flagg and Duke. The other part of that too is that Cooper Flagg has been the best player in every game that Duke has played. Yes, you can throw in an Isaiah Evans half here and there. You can throw in what Conklin did early on in the season, but Cooper Flagg has been their best player and go-to guy pretty much from the jump and has been consistently that throughout the course of the season. Janai Broom has been Auburn's best player. I'm not here to argue that, but how many times have we talked about the Hod Pettiford? How many times have we talked about the guards? How many times have we talked about Miles Kelly, Chad Baker Mazzara, those guys making major impacts and winning games? We haven't had the same conversations around Duke. Every time it's been with Duke, it's been about Cooper Flagg. Now, I will hear the argument that Auburn has played tougher competition more often than Duke, a byproduct of how good the SEC has been and how bad the ACC has been. So there is some of that involved there too. But every time Duke gets tested, Cooper Flagg steps up. Every time they play in a big game, Cooper Flagg steps up. He is always there. He is always the guy. It starts and stops with him. Broom does that sometimes. Other times it's a Hod Pettiford putting him over the edge. Other times it's Chad Baker Mazzara putting Auburn over the edge. To me, that is a difference when you're looking at a National Player of the Year race. I also think there is an element to every National Player of the Year race where we just it gets to this point in the season and we think about how we are going to remember this season by. Right now, in that same vein, I think we remember it as Auburn and Cooper Flagg. We do not remember it as Janai Broome and Cooper Flagg. We don't remember it as Janai Broome and Duke or Auburn and Duke. I think we view this season as how good Auburn has been and how good Cooper Flagg has been. And to me, that says more than any number could.